Oh, hey, wow, what's this?
Give it a whirl. Hi everybody, it's Nick DeWolf. We're nearing the end of the icky recall campaign, or whatever you want to call it, but the recall election. Today as my guest I have myself. I'm going to express a few views about how I feel about this particular election. Last night we had a debate, not a debate, but we had the first time all the candidates were together, and the subject matter presumably was an invitation from the AVIA, which is a more wide open thinking organization, to invite the candidates to think about the future of Aspen and to help us clear up our crystal ball confusions about where we're going. And I was absolutely, utterly stunned at the fact that my crystal ball, full of smoky crystals and uncertainties, is just as smoky after that debate as it was before. Some things come out fairly clearly about the candidates, but not about any sense of leadership for the future. If I was to praise anyone in that regard, I guess it would have to be Wainwright Dawson, running for mayor, whom I really don't exactly understand, but who clearly is trying to think on a broader basis than just specific issues. There's much pressure to talk about issues, this issue, that issue, this piece of hotel, that chunk of fur, this or that. But I'm stunned at the lack of basic leadership that we have from the recall advocates about any plan for Aspen or any broader thinking at all. So I thought I'd spend a few minutes with you on what I think is really, really going on in this election. We are concerned about divisiveness. We hear that this whole process has made us all pitted against each other, and that it's the fault of the election or the fault of the government or the fault of some note passing or something that we're at each other's throats. And that really does us all a great disservice. We're famous here in this town for absorbing all manner of punches and even being entertained by them. We are divisive because there is a conflict in this community, and that conflict, of which the government is merely a surface of it, that conflict is so evident that it would be foolish for us not to try to understand the conflict and the forces at work a little more easily. If each of us, if each of you out there can understand this conflict, then you'll be able to understand what's going on in elections and forthcoming issues as they come up. I'm amazed that we don't see it. Now, I certainly may well be wrong, and I want to take just 2 seconds to explain who I am a little bit, because I've been accused of being a rich guy who's pretending to be a poor guy, and therefore I'm hypocritical. Well, that's odd. I am independent. I retired many years ago here in Aspen, having had a success in the electronics business. I still work, but not here in Aspen. Like many in this new computer communication, it's possible to earn a good living if you have contacts, at least, doing consulting work by computer modem. I do a lot of that. And I do design work. So my income and my physical security is not dependent on the economics in Aspen, and I do own my own house here. I was fortunate enough to buy it when it was terribly expensive, but was manageable for a middle-class person to buy. I'm amazed, though, that people would say, how can that guy stick up for this group if he really seems to belong to that group? It's terribly divisive, even a divisive idea. There's an old-fashioned thing called noblesse oblige, and it is that if you are well enough fixed to take care of your own family and your own needs, and you have energy left over, that perhaps you have an obligation to your community or to society or something to contribute more than just to your own self-serving interests. I was brought up that way in the old Philadelphia main line. I'm filled with a sense of noblesse oblige. But the fact that people can't understand that that exists is horrifying to me. What's happened to us if there aren't some of us who are working for some other purpose than just merely to put bread on our own tables? Certainly many of the people in this campaign, in office and outside, have some motives other than just surely their bottom line. But I do suggest that we're involved here in a very basic conflict. And I'm going to suggest something that I don't believe the people who are guilty of, let's say, incurring my wrath are even aware of what they're doing. Let's assume that we have a beautiful valley with magnificent mountains and that there is some person, anyone, who wishes to exploit, to maximize their return on whatever hold that they have on this beautiful piece of valley. These I would call the exploiters. They wish to exploit what we have. Their accountants tell them about how the American accounting system works, and it teaches them not to think very far ahead. Stay just in the next quarter. Don't think beyond the next quarter if you can help it. And that is one of the weaknesses of the whole American economic system right now. In fact, it's much too short-sighted. That's one of the reasons the Japanese are punishing us, because we're so short-sighted. But if I were an exploiter of this beautiful place, I would set out a certain society. And I would like to suggest to you that that society is exactly the direction Aspen's headed for, hell-bent for election, as they say. First of all, and this is what the exploiters want. They don't realize it. They haven't rationalized it. They haven't sat down and figured it out. They're just working out this and that deal. They're making deals all over the place, buying and selling. But underpinning it is the following. First of all, the place would be exclusive. Its exclusivity is what keeps it high in value. So we have to exclude somebody. We just can't take in everybody if we want to exploit the place. By the way, the exploitees, which is the other side, also feel the same. They don't want the place run over. So therefore, virtually everybody doesn't want this place turned into a fast food chain so that it looks like Phoenix, Arizona's roadway strips. Secondly, we would want to have our finer institutions, perhaps the Ritz hotels or whatever they are, the finest possible. Everybody would want that because that's what we would need in order to attract people. We want celebrities. We want this, we want that in order to maximize the return on our investment. And the most important thing, and this to me is what this election is about. Most of you will disagree with me, but it's where I'm coming from in this. We would want to think through who lives here, and we discover that the worker bees we want them servile. We want them friendly to our customers. We don't want them friendly because it comes from within their hearts. We want them friendly because we want them to do what we want them to do. Therefore, we would have a working class, as they have in Vail and in many other places, which doesn't have a sense of community. It's there in order to make a living, and it is taught to be friendly. It is taught, trained, schooled in friendship, rather than it's coming from within the heart, because via friendship and servility will come large numbers of these absentee people or these visitors who will be maximizing the return on our investment. We want absentee owners. We want big houses that are absentee owned because we don't have a problem finding help for those people. They only need help now and then. So therefore, if you want to return the investment on a spot, you don't put a family there with kids who bring the kids up through the school system. That's expensive. You just have a guy who wants to come here 2 weeks a year, to whom cost is no object, and you persuade him that this will enhance his social prestige by owning this thing. That is what you'd push. That's what we're getting. Now that's the consequences then, I genuinely believe, of an uncontrolled, purely economic, bottom line, accountant-driven mentality, which is what we have steering this town largely, leaving government out, is that the middle class will be driven out of Aspen. The middle class doesn't contribute to this return on investment. They are, in fact, contentious, as I am. They're a pain in the neck. About the only value that people like I have is some sort of entertainment. But we really shouldn't have amateur entertainment like that. What we really should have is Nureyev come and dance for us in the ballet, in the new high school ballet thing, so that we can bring all kinds of people into town to watch Nureyev dance. But we ourselves aren't supposed to dance. There is a different view than that. That's the return on investment view. There's another view that some of us might call community. The town was settled in the last 40 years by a very special, odd, strange group of very overqualified people. They weren't drawn here to return a maximum on their financial investment. They were drawn here to return a maximum on their investment in life or their energy or their creative juices. And almost without exception, all of us here have accepted work which is beneath our training, beneath our skills. We've been overqualified. That's why I moved here, because the people are so overqualified. They're wonderful. The Aspenite is a very self-assured, very different person than a servile worker. Even people who profess to be worker bees are, the classic, of course, is the PhD waitress. So here we have the exploiters whose bottom line best interest is served by driving the middle class out of Aspen. Whether they're driven to basalt or to outer space makes no difference. And here we have this middle class, if you will. By middle class, I mean people who are not here purely to earn so many bucks per hour, but also are not secure enough to be able to buy a place to live, for example. Now, if you look at the candidates and you look at the recall election and you look at the inspiration for the recall election and you look at the way it's handled and you try to look at where the candidates are coming from and what fundamentally is the driving juice that drives them, you'll find that it's very clear. The present city council strongly has a sense of community, and the community that they have a sense for is the community of the people I'm describing who built the village in the first place as an interesting mixture of people who were not here solely to exploit the territory. Largely, if anything, they're the exploitees. The recallers are driven by juices mostly acidic, I'd say a pH of around 3, bile perhaps, to throw these guys out of office and put in instead good, solid, American flag-waving free enterprisers who will basically, without controls and minimize government controls, do what the balance sheet says needs doing, which is to drive out the middle class. Well, I'm trying to put in simple words, they're not so simple, why it is that I have such passion about the risks of taking a council whom you do understand. You know where they're coming from, you know what they're doing. They're certainly doing their very best on employee housing, which everybody's concerned about, and replacing them with and throwing them out in disgrace, in disgrace, because a recall has a measure of disgrace with it, and replacing them with people that you really don't know very well, that you would have to be concerned about a bit, who are clearly, of the, whatever it is, 6 here, I find 4 that I have to call real estate connected. I find 2 that I find very manipulable and with debts to the organization that has been the recall organization. All of the candidates, the challengers, if they win, owe an immense debt to the recallers to having been put in there. Another point I want to make about divisiveness is that if I, for example, wished to, or were willing, let's say, to be a city councilor, which is a very tough piece of work to do, and I myself would be very hard-pressed to do it without 40 hours a week of work. I would have to work hard because it's very complicated, all of the innuendos of all of the upcoming physical things that need to be decided. It would never cross my mind, it would never cross my mind to run as a candidate in this election. The reason is that I feel to run as a candidate in the recall election involves endorsing the idea that the present council is dishonorable and deserves to be dishonorably discharged. It's not then that a person who was even, let's say, a moderate couldn't run against the city council. It would have to be an extremely irritated person who is really angry at the council and what they've done in order to run under this circumstance. I therefore suggest that the recall process, if the council leaned, let's say, leftwards, forces only strongly right-wing people to run. And that is what I see when I actually look at the candidates. They are filled with hatreds, they're filled with venoms, they're filled with a desire, really almost a destructive desire, to kill those people in office so that they can get in there and do we don't know what, but I strongly suspect that what they wish to do is to drive the middle class down valley. So having made that accusation, I have to stand by it. They don't realize it themselves, but that's the consequences of what their actions would be. I would like to urge you, if you'd like to see Aspen stay an interesting place rather than just a financial return on investment, that you do the gentlemanly or gentle ladily or the smooth thing to do, leave the city council to serve out their terms, use the normal election process to permit a more moderate, balanced kind of an election, and let these people serve out their terms. Please vote to keep our city council. Thank you. I'm Nick DeWolf.
The preceding video is one of thousands of unarchived community videos warehoused at Grassroots TV. You can help get them out of their boxes and onto the web. These thousands of videos are the motion picture history of our community from 1971 to 2001, produced by our community. To contribute to this community effort, please call Grassroots TV at 925-8000 with your donation.